What's going on, Badger fans? We got Coach's Corner. We're talking the offense, Braedyn Locke coming out of the Ohio State game. Questions on play calling. Let's talk about that goal line sequence and the biggest positives and negatives coming out of the Ohio State game with Coach Anderson on today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, you guys are amazing. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, let's get Coach Anderson on. Our typical Wednesday Coach's Corner. Coach, Ohio State game, 24-10. I know we both talked about it. We watched it. What are your thoughts? I want to start with the offense. I want to start with a 10-point showing against a really good Ohio State defense. What was your main takeaway coming out of that from the offense?
I thought, for one thing, in the passing game especially, I think maybe not the situation got the best of Braden, but he was rushing at times, and sometimes he was just maybe throwing the ball a little bit too hard. He couple throws there, he just really ripped in there. And I think the situation maybe got in his head a little bit. He made a lot of great throws. His pocket awareness is, for his age, is still phenomenal. And some of the situations that he got himself out of were really, really good to see. And situations that I think if maybe Tanner was still in there could have gone negatively. I could think, for example, the situation where he's 3rd and 15 throwing out of the back of his own end zone and throws a strike to Skyler down the middle of the field. That's a situation that you don't expect a young quarterback to be able to hit. But then there are other situations where maybe he rushed things a little bit too much. Maybe he tried to throw the ball a little bit too hard. Some of those drops that he got, maybe the balls weren't as catchable as they should have been. So it's a hit and miss. But when you're playing the number 3 team in the country, and now I guess the number 1 team in the country with the playoff standings, you can't expect much better. You hope for better and pray you don't get worse. And it was kind of down the middle. We did a lot of good things. Still stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
Still penalties, still drops, missed blocks. I kind of said this in my breakdown. We picked the wrong situations to be human. And that can be an issue. Everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes, but when you pick the absolute wrong time to do it, it piles up. And I think the game was closer than the score indicated. I think we're 2 or 3 plays away from, if we hit them when we should have, the game's a lot closer. I don't think at any point I felt like we were getting blown out. Or I felt that the offense couldn't hang with them, or the defense for that matter. It just came down to the best team won.
It felt like I definitely want to talk about, because if you look at the end of the game, Badgers commentary is literally catch the ball. It really felt like watching the game and going back and seeing some of it a lot. And you brought this up, so I want to hit on it. A lot of those catches weren't as easy as there was some inaccuracy with Braedyn Locke too. Like, part of a quarterback's job is to create more catchable passes. Now, the receivers do need to catch the ball. If it hits your hands, you have to catch it. But it felt like it was a combination of inaccuracy, and it wasn't just receiver drops in this game.
No, I mean, Luke Fickell gave me my new favorite catchphrase: "You touch it, you clutch it."
I love that,
and it is true. But the quarterback's got to help you. And some of and again, a lot of it, maybe placement wasn't necessarily an issue. It's a little bit out in front, but when he's just rocking it in there, that's a hard catch, especially if the ball's coming through traffic or something like that. So yes, the receivers need to catch the ball. Braden needs to help in those situations. And this is going to be an issue that's going to take him some time to work through, because he's not used to throwing to these receivers. He's used to throwing to the second team. So if anything, he's going to throw the ball to Skyler more, because he's more used to throwing it to Skyler. But he needs to get comfortable with the first team, and he hasn't had all camp. He hasn't had all spring. And it's going to take time where he gets that second nature. And it doesn't help when he has Ohio State's defense breathing down his neck and he feels like he has to rush it and has to throw it harder. That's something he needs to learn. And it'll come with time. And I think, his stat line is not as terrible as it might indicate. I hate using analytic terms, but his adjusted completion percentage was probably a lot better than it was, because he had throwaways, he had tips, he had drops, etc. So there's something to build on. But yeah, he definitely needs to help his receivers, especially when they're having these mental blocks, whatever you want to say, that's causing them to drop the ball. He needs to help them for sure.
I feel like with him, and you mentioned this a little bit with the pocket awareness, he's the type of quarterback I feel pretty confident the accuracy is just going to get better and better. Like, if you look at this is something Luke Fickell mentioned as well in his presser. I thought this was interesting. I'm going to kick it to you. He said you couldn't start I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember the exact quote, but he said you couldn't start a quarterback with a tougher Iowa, a road Big Ten game, and Ohio State, right? He's not starting with Buffalo or Akron, right?
No.
Like, what a springboard potentially for Braedyn Locke going forward, not just the rest of this year, but into next year.
And not only that, I mean, he doesn't have the benefit of camp. His mentality going into camp is totally different than his mentality coming in as a starter. And to get no warning, it's, by the way, you are going in, and 10 minutes later, you realize you're going to be the starter for the rest of the season. And then to have to do against Iowa and Illinois on the road, and then Ohio State, that is a tough task with inconsistencies around you. And that's what gives me confidence in him, because he's performed admirably when he's been put in that situation. He's made throws. He's shown leadership on the field by his actions and his calm demeanor that are going to carry him forward, where I have no doubt this is going to be his team next year. And he is going to be that leader and that we need. And he will take control of that offense. You better believe these guys are going to be spending every waking second in the offseason throwing balls to each other. And the receivers are going to start getting annoyed at him, and all the text messages coming, hey, meet me out on the field in 20 minutes. We're throwing balls. And I know he's going to be that type of player for sure.
Well, he's definitely that type of guy. You just read what Phil Longo says about him. You don't need to be a decoder. Phil Longo says he never was out of the film room. His high school coach said, I've never seen a guy wired this way. Like, he is this type of guy. Talk to me a little bit about the pass protection for this game, because in watching it, it actually felt like, again, given the opponent, given some of the struggles we've had, it felt like they held up okay for the most part.
I think so. I think a lot of the pressures that Ohio State got were well-designed pressures that they were able to use scheme to manipulate open pressures. They were still able to get some pressures home with 4 rushers and 3 rushers every now and then, and that's where the athletes take over. But I thought for the most part we had better play within the pass protection scheme. We didn't get as many situations as we had in the previous weeks where we have 2 people blocking nobody because someone got the slide wrong or the running back didn't get up into the protection. I thought actually Braedyn, until he got himself hurt, for the most part, had his best pass protection game. He still had one that led to a pressure and an incompletion, but he's getting better. It's like we've talked about. Braedyn is still learning how to play running back. Like he's played running back in high school and stuff like that, and he's played since he's been at Wisconsin. But you can tell a lot of what he's been taught is you're big, go run. It's look at him run. Look at how strong he is. And now I think Coach Spalding is really like, nobody cares how strong you are. I want to see you pass protect. I want to see you catch the ball. That's what's going to get you to the next level.
I want to see you protect the ball.
Yeah, because everybody can do what he does at the next level. Everybody can. He's bigger and he can do it, but not the guys who stick in the NFL are the ones who are there in running the ball, pass protecting, and catching the ball. And he's getting better. So that helps with the pass protection scheme. I think Jackson Aker is a capable pass blocker. and that was good. That's good to see. I think he's definitely going to be able to take that role from Ches of kind of that third down blocking back that Ches had to do earlier in the season. And we had a Cade Yakimelli sighting, and maybe he gets involved. He got the absolute wrong play to get the ball.
That was a violent Cade Yakimelli sighting. But I will say, for a young running back, literally taking his first carry to hang on to the ball in that, like he got plastered.
Yeah. That is your first play. Welcome to Big Ten football. And at least he held on to it.
We're going to come back with Coach Anderson, Coach's Corner. We're going to talk about that really gorgeous Braedyn Locke touchdown pass where he manipulated the pocket, rolled out. Talk about the goal line sequence that I know Coach has been going back and forth with a couple people on, myself included. And then we'll get to the biggest positives and negatives from today's game. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned fantasy sports platform in America for a reason. It gives you the ability to finally get away from all the sharks, the hordes of people who do thousands of entries all the time with all their data and make it impossible for the regular daily fantasy sports user to win. This is what PrizePicks is. You just pick between 2 and 6 players, stats over or under. That's it. Maybe Braylon Allen, more rushing yards or less rushing yards. Maybe Chimere Dike, more receiving yards or less receiving yards. Just pick your players. It's you against the stats, not you against everybody else. In and out in under 60 seconds. Clickety-clack on your mouse. It's that simple. It's incredibly easy to play, incredibly easy to use. And with Apple Pay, they have the simplest and easiest ways to make easy deposits into your account when you do make those PrizePicks winning hits this football season. On PrizePicks, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for our first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for our first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, let's get Coach back on. Continue this conversation here. Coach, I definitely want to get into the goal line stand, the goal line situation, but I want to start with the Braedyn Locke touchdown pass. Walk me through what you liked. So, because I know we talked about that a little bit even after the game. Walk me through what you liked so much about that sequence.
Could be that could be the best throw I've ever seen a Badger quarterback make.
That's high praise.
If Patrick Mahomes made that throw, we'd be hearing about it for a week on ESPN. No look, put the ball in a spot, moving away from his arm. That is a big time throw. And again, you don't see throws like that from young quarterbacks who don't have just absolute 100% confidence in their ability. That is I am the guy type throw. So that's what I really love. I love the play design, setting up play action off of toss, speed option kind of look, and then just running one guy across the field and trying to set up the seam. It's not there, comes back to the back corner of the end zone, has the pocket awareness to step up because there was pressure. Mm-hmm. And I think Pauling was the third option on that play. And Braden had the wherewithal not only to be able to move in the pocket, know where his receivers are going to be, but put the ball in a position where only his guy could get it. It was an absolutely perfect throw in the absolute best spot it could be, the only spot it could be. And I love seeing that. And it's a great play design that got him open and put us in that position. So all in all, one of the best plays of the season.
I think it speaks to what we talked about with the ability of Locke to move around in the pocket, but keep his situational awareness, right? His head is still downfield. He's still looking for the throws. Because, let me know if you think I'm wrong. If that's Mordecai, he takes off.
I think so. Oh, yeah, for sure.
He probably gets 8 yards on it, by the way. Like, he probably gets 8 to 10 yards. This is not
because it's they're running mesh. They're running CJ across the field. They're running Pauling up to the pylon. So it would have been there. It was 13 yards. Hell, he could have taken it all the way to the end zone. But that's just the different mentality that Braden has, where his eyes are always downfield. It's a lot like, I might be overstating it here, but it's like Russ. The difference between a runner like Cam Newton and a runner like Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. On paper, they're the same speed, the same athletic ability, But where Cam Newton gets that initial pressure and he just takes off, Russell Wilson will run sideline to sideline all day, but his eyes are always downfield looking for a pass. And that's dangerous. And Braedyn has enough athletic ability that if he wanted to, he could have taken off there and gotten 6-7 yards. Hell, he had a 20-yard run in the middle of the game, even more. He has the ability, no question. But he also knows what he is. He's quarterback. And he keeps his eyes downfield all the time. And that's where you can turn a good play into a career-defining play. And that's what that could have been. Because like I said, you have to have a special level of confidence in yourself to look one way and throw the other and not look to where you're throwing it. His eyes did not come back to Pauling until after the ball was out of his hands. That takes a special kind of quarterback.
Yeah, it was an awesome play. In the stands, it was awesome. And then going back on the rewatch, it's even better on the rewatch because you don't see his vision, right?
Yep.
And in the stands, you don't see it. Sorry, in the rewatch, you do.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the goal line situation. Right before the half, Badgers trailing 10-0. They put together a drive. They get down to the 1-yard line. First and goal at the 1. I know there's people that are frustrated by this. I know some of that frustration comes from just not scoring, right? If you score on the first play or the third play, then a lot of that criticism goes away. I will say, and Rashid can back me up on this, in the stands right after we scored, we thought we scored, I said, I love it, but I don't love the play call. I know you disagree a little bit with that, or at least you have a different take on it. I give you the floor here to kind of talk about the sequence a little bit, because this was one of the pivotal sequences of this game.
Yeah. I think, there is no wrong opinion on this. From a fan point of view and from a knowledgeable outsider point of view, why don't we just line up in I formation and run 3 straight up the middle or run a QB sneak? Why can't we just do that? I think our interior offensive line tells you why. And I think our tailback in the situations where everybody knows he's getting the ball tells us why. For me, that's my answer. And so then you come to play design and execution. The first play to Skylar is as close as you can get to a 100% success rate type of play in that kind of situation. Because first, you get the defense aligned exactly how they wanted to. This play, this is the thing to get the whole sequence. The whole sequence was built on the game plan. Longo expected Ohio State to line up how they lined up that entire sequence. He got exactly what he wanted. And if it wasn't for 3 inches too long or Michael Furtney falling down, we scored on 2 out of those 3 plays. And ironically, the one play that we had the least success on in terms of execution was the closest one to what everybody wanted, which is just pound it straight ahead.
Our run to Braylon.
Yeah, what do you want? You want Braylon Allen 7 yards deep, quarterback turns around, hand the ball off to him, or do you want Braylon Allen 7 yards deep and you turn around and hand it off to him? Is it exactly the same thing? And I'm sorry for everyone who's going to yell at me for this and say I'm wrong, but turning around and handing off to a running back in an I formation is not faster than taking a shotgun snap and handing it to the running back. It's not. It just flat out isn't. And in fact, more can go wrong turning around and handing it off to a running back than it can in a gun.
Well, let me ask you this though.
Yep.
With the snap issues we've had at times, does that factor in at all?
Maybe, but if we look at, and I went back and I looked, if we look at our plays that we've run under center so far this year,
not great.
Have we gained any yards?
Well, we got the touchdown from Malusi,
right? on a which went against convention,
right?
It was a pitch out, but I mean, if you look at the Iowa game. The reason why that play didn't work is because the snap was too slow. So if the snap's too slow and you try to run QB sneak, Braedyn Locke's dying. And so, it's not, everyone points out, the Eagles can do it. The Eagles have the best center of his generation and a running quarterback who's 5'9".
Yeah. Who can squat 600
It's going to work. Yeah, of course it's gonna work. We don't have the guys to just and could you imagine if we did line up and go I formation, don't get it, QB sneak, 3 straight plays or 3 straight ISO plays? They'd be on the streets with pitchforks and torches looking for Longo because it didn't work. What they did was they ran 3 plays that Longo game plan for, expected to work, and 2 out of 3 of them basically did work if it wasn't for one guy making a mistake. So it's okay to not like the decision, but the rationale behind that led to this decision is sound, and it's there. It just comes down to, Ohio State did not scheme to stop those plays. Longo got exactly what he wanted. And we had one throw that was maybe a little bit too low, or Skyler wasn't aware where his knee was, one of those two. But he walks into the end zone or falls into the end zone easily. And if Michael Furtney doesn't get blown up and trip Joe Huber, Braylon walks in, even if he just stops the guy and Huber falls down, Braylon walks into the end zone, and we wouldn't be talking about it. And
I still might be.
Maybe again, and people are.
Your bigger point is 100% correct, though. Like, fans want success, and I'm not saying this is everybody, right? Because I'm not perfect at this either. I try to. Good play calls don't always work, and bad play calls sometimes work. Whereas a lot of people look at success, good play call, or not success, bad play call. And I think you have to look deeper. Like, the play call can be good, and things can just still not work. Or you can make the right decision in a moment as a coach, and it doesn't work out. But if it's the right decision, it's going to work out more often than it doesn't. It's more process driven than results driven. We have to take a quick break. I'm going to come back. I want to ask you one more question on this goal line stand, because part of and I'll tease it up here. I don't know if I love, and I mentioned this to you, given the inconsistencies of the passing game, it feels like the right chess move to have your pieces aligned that way. But given our personnel, I don't know if I trust our quarterback and receiver as a high of a, you know what I mean? Like, do you trust one of our receivers making that catch in that moment, or Braedyn Locke being accurate enough for him to just walk in? I'm going to ask you that when we come up after the break, and get Coach's biggest positive and negative coming from this game. But first, quick break from our friends of the show over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the #1 source I go to for all of my parts, all of my car needs. And if you guys know me, I have many, right? I've had cars die in parking lots. I ran into trees. Like, I have multiple car issues. Both of our current cars now, the one looks like it's came back from Ukraine. It's got like a hole in the side. The door doesn't open great. The other one is starting to make noise. The Jeep is. So I go to eBay Motors, the right parts, the right fit, the right prices. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, the part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP, bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Let's get Coach back in here, finish off this conversation. So Coach, one of the things we talked about this a little bit, was the idea of you can line up your chess pieces correctly. And I think that's definitely part of what you're saying. Like, Longo had the right chess pieces aligned with where he wanted them. But our personnel, like, just the part of the issue for me on that sequence was I don't trust our receivers to make catches. Yeah, we can talk about Braylon Allen having struggles. Certainly that second down run didn't go anywhere. But you only need one of those inside power runs or quarterback sneaks to gain a yard. You don't need any. And it felt like throwing the ball to Skyler Bell. And I know you mentioned, we talked about this offline, that's not really a Longo thing. That might be Coach Brown who has Skyler Bell in that situation. But we've seen Skyler Bell's hands. That feels like also a pretty risky proposition there.
It could be. I think the thing with Skyler and what they were maybe thinking, I mean, he caught the ball. Let's put it that way. He did catch the ball. Skyler tends to drop the routine stuff. It's the hard stuff.
It's true
that he tends to do. But like his catch, like we just talked about, the catch that he made on that 3rd and 15 situation where he took the DB's helmet off.
Yeah.
That's a big time catch, and he can do it. And I think part of a way to get a young receiver to get his confidence back is to say, I trust you in this situation. And they did. He's a bigger body than Pauling. I think if they put Pauling there, maybe the bells and whistles goes off in the DBs that maybe we jump it. Who knows? It could have just been his turn in the rotation. So I don't think the personnel, I think if they didn't trust him in that situation, they wouldn't have done it. So as long as he's got Braedyn Locke's trust and Phil Longo's trust and Mike Brown's trust, I trust him. You know, you could always put a different receiver there and it changes the results. It just comes down to, when you look at the percentages within your offense, what you think has the best chance of success. And they like that play. They like what that play also sets up in the future. That formation, it sets up a lot of things. And in the situation, it is a high percentage, low risk kind of play. Because the worst thing that's going to happen on that play is an incomplete pass and it's 2nd and 1. So that's why you kind of throw a pass like that in that situation. The worst thing that's going to happen is going to be an incomplete pass. If you turn around and run I formation, power football there, we've seen it. A lot of things could happen where we get stunned behind the line, we lose yards, we lose momentum. So at the end of the day, you have to think what you think gives you the best percentage. In that case, against that alignment, that's what they thought they had with the guys they had out there. Again, if they wouldn't have, if anything, I think the play is more successful because Skylar's out there. And we could go back and rewind that play over and over again and see, did Braden throw it a little bit too low? Did Skylar not get upfield enough? There are a lot of things, but 3 inches and we're not talking about it. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that gets me with it. And why I'm the whole sequence, why I don't have any issue with it. Yes, we want to score. We want to score touchdowns. Of course. I'm not saying that we should do that, anything else. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to running it correctly. And it doesn't matter what we ran in that situation. It could result in the same thing. And again, if we run anything else in that situation and it doesn't succeed, we're having the same conversation.
Yeah.
And then the conversation goes to, oh, well, you're an air raid team. How come you didn't spread them out on the goal line? How come you didn't run a goal line fade? How come you didn't run a split flow with a tight end in the flat? So I think a lot of the beef I think we're getting in this situation from people is it doesn't matter what we ran because it didn't work. That's an indication of how things are going wrong, where that's just the opinion is already there. And I get it. It seems simpler to just bang it straight forward, and maybe it is, but to the staff, it wasn't. Yeah. And again, 3 inches, we're not talking about it. 3 inches, we're talking about we're tied at halftime with Ohio State.
No, and to your point, man, the play was there. It was obviously there. Like a simple pitching, I shouldn't say simple because that, but relatively for Division I quarterback receiver, a simple pitch and catch, and it's a touchdown. But you're going to open yourself up to questions when you have a 240-pound running back and you don't get it down. But I want to shift to here. And listen, I think the other thing I'll say is I think it's an offensive line thing at the end of the day anyway. I think if your offensive – like part of the reason, in my opinion, not that Longo's not going to want to continue doing spreading it out, throwing it on 1st and goal, but I think if the offensive line plays better, the interior offensive line plays better, I think you might just see 2 runs. I think the reason you do some of this is because you don't trust your interior.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's who do you trust in the situation? Do you trust Skylar Bell behind 2 tight ends, or do you trust the interior lineman and your 245-pound tailback? That is a big indication of what's wrong with this team. Is in situations where everybody knows that Braylon's getting the ball, it's not guaranteed success. Mm-hmm. He has fumbled in those situations. He has gotten blown up in those situations. It's happened. And we've also had situations where quarterback turns around, and by the time he gets the ball to the running back, there's a defensive tackle waiting for him. So in those situations, what you want to try to do is like, all right, offensive line, you're not blocking very well. Get out of the way so we can just throw the ball and get rid of it. So, and that's what it comes down to. It's been the same thing all year. Our offensive line has just not been playing that well. I mean, and that's putting it mildly. Its offensive line has been playing poorly this year because they are just not athletic enough to operate in anything outside of a phone box. It's and that's an issue. And that's something that is going to be less on Jack Bicknell this offseason, more on Brady Collins to get this offensive line in the shape that it needs to be, because they need to have a new mindset in terms of how they use their athletic ability. And that's also why you're seeing a change in the type of players that they're recruiting. Is they're recruiting college ready, for the most part, bodies that don't need a lot of weight to be put on. They have college ready athletic ability. They just need to learn. In the past, we would get these 245 pound, 250 pound, 260 pound, 6'7" guys. We spend 3 years putting on 60 pounds of weight. And then, okay, redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior, redshirt senior, they're ready to go. But then you just create a bunch of clones that are basically the same body type. And now that body type doesn't work anymore. And the game is changing where that's not going to work anymore. So the offensive line has to play better, flat out. Because, yeah, I wouldn't trust the offensive line in that situation.
Well, I think that's where Longo's at to some degree too, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think that he's necessarily saying I don't want to run the ball here. It's just I don't think he thought that the offensive line could get pushed. At the end of the day, I still, and maybe this is a broken brain in my head, I still think if you hand the ball off to Braylon 3 times, he's going to score one of them. But it's possible he doesn't. Maybe. Right there, but it's definitely possible he doesn't. Yep. And at the end of the day, their defensive line is just a lot better, and that causes all
that too. And it just comes down to the matchup. It comes down to who you trust. And I mean, Phil Longo has shown he's not Mike Leach. We're still running the ball 30 times a game. We're throwing the ball 40 times, but usually in the past, when we were throwing the ball 40 times, that means we're running the ball 15 times and we're behind. Mm-hmm. We're running the ball 30 times and we're throwing the ball 40 times.
And go ahead.
No, and we're still having, again, statistically, we're having slightly better success than we've had in the past in a transition year. And Longo's offenses are always better in the second year. Fickle with Cincinnati didn't take off to the second year. We're not in a bad position. It's just we got to fix these couple spots.
Give me kind of quickly here, but give me your biggest positive and biggest negative coming out of that game.
Well, to go on a completely other end, I think defensively, that was a really good game, all things considered. At the end of the day, the best receiver in the country showed why he was the best receiver in the country. They had some really good play calls offensively that put him in situations where nobody could stop him. You can't game plan around that. But for the most part, the defense played a lot better. I really liked the pressures that Tressel used. We talked about it last week, where the keys to playing with Ohio State was to bring the pressure, and they did. They showed that they weren't intimidated by Ohio State. At no point in that game did I feel that the coaching staff or the players felt intimidated. They felt they were in it the whole game. And that's a positive sign, because you look at the Ohio State game last year, the game was over after the end of the second drive, and nobody was in it anymore. And so that's a huge positive step. So defensively, it went in the right direction, and a lot of players are making plays, and that was good to see. You're starting to see where the deficiencies are on defense, and where personnel decisions are going to have to be made in the offseason. But the defense is starting to hit their stride, and they've had a tough test these last couple weeks, not either between Ohio State being as good as they are and then being in situations where the offense wasn't helping them, but they're starting to come through and play better. The disappointment was
really quick on the defense before you go off
Yep.
that. I do want your disappointment too, but the defense set the tone in this game too.
Mhm.
I think it's underrated. First drive, Ohio State, not only do they not score, because there's an arrogance with Ohio State that's earned. It's an earned
Mhm.
arrogance, right? Because they're so friggin' good every year. Of course they're going to go for it fourth down that first drive because they're going to get it because they're Ohio State. They're going to score on the first drive. They're going to put Wisconsin in a hole. They're going to shut Camp Randall up. And no, defense steps up, makes a huge stop, hits McCord, forces a fumble, fourth down stop. They set the tone. They absolutely set the tone in this game for the Badgers offense to pick up, which they just couldn't get going early enough.
Yep, and a lot of the guys that has been talked about this year have been liabilities, stepped up. I think CJ Getz looked pretty good for the most part. Muma played okay. Jordan Turner, well, he's better than he has the last couple weeks. I think defensive backs, outside of Rico, played admirably. Zachman is coming into his own. They're finding ways to use Kamoi Latu where his aggressiveness is not a liability anymore. Gio Paez played a pretty good game inside. One mental mistake of understanding where to flex on the field, and the game might be a little bit different. And defense is really taking a step forward, and offense has to start over. Like the progression that we were starting to make with Tanner has to start over. And the fact that, Braylon got hurt. Shocker. Again, Braylon gets hurt. That's just what he does. And, Chimray gets hurt. And, things are, it's going to be a lot of, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, back and forth offensively this year to find their identity. But they weren't intimidated by the moment. Like, we're making plays all the way up to the fourth quarter. We didn't string up good ones, but at no point did I feel that the offense felt intimidated or Braden felt that he was in over his head. So that's positive. Negative is still the same mental mistakes, still the same, less stupid false start penalties and stuff like that. That was better to see. But situational awareness, like again with Gio.
Not snapping the ball when an Ohio State defender jumps off sides.
Yeah, stupid little things like that. Those take time to get better because it's whether you're excited or you're just caught up in the moment, you understand what you're doing. But more positives than you would expect from a 14-point loss, when a 14-point loss is considered a positive. Hell, they covered. Weren't they 14.5-point underdogs?
They were.
There you go. So take that for a positive sign.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. Like I said, people hate the term moral victory, but you can say progress is made. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Progress is made. Yeah. It's in 3 years, it has to be better than it is now. But they played Ohio State tough. Ohio State's a monster.
Yeah, they have to grow up fast. And with the way the Big Ten is changing and the way that schedule is going to be next year, it's going to change the mindset of how the program is going to be built. And I think we have the right people in place that are ready to take that next step into this new Big Ten. And we're going to and once we start getting more of the right people in place, it's going to fall together. I have every confidence in that.
I think it's well said. He is Coach Anderson, joining us for Coach's Corner every Wednesday. Go check out his work at Dairy Ray. Let's get him up to 500 subs. Coach, thank you so much as always. See you next week.
Every time.
Love it, man. On Wisconsin, we'll talk tomorrow.